Welcome to Declutter for Change, the podcast where we clear the visible and invisible clutter from your mind, body, soul, and home to make room for the life you actually want to live and love. I'm your host, Heather Clark. In this episode, I am joined by interiors therapy expert Suzanne Roynon to discuss how traditional Feng Shui and the hidden energy of your physical space controls your health, your cash flow, and your relationships. Suzanne is an international interiors therapy expert, Feng Shui consultant, and a best-selling author of Welcome Home: How Stuff Makes or Breaks Your Relationship. She helps clients worldwide understand how hidden clutter and home layouts actively damage their health, wealth, and relationships. A trusted media expert for major outlets like BBC and Architectural Digest, Suzanne provides practical strategies to transform everyday homes and workspaces into thriving, supportive environments. Hello, Suzanne. How are you doing?
Heather, I'm well. It's a joy to be here.
Thank you so much for joining me. And you know what? What you do is something that I actually do myself, but I probably do it in like the most green way. Like I am such a newbie with it. This is why I wanted somebody to come on to talk about Feng Shui and the home and how important it is, with what you have in it and what you have to remove from it. So tell our listeners, first of all, how did you even get into what you do, and how did you start teaching people this whole entire concept of Feng Shui and the interior and how, your home is part of you?
Oh, wow. Well, it goes back a long way. I thought it was 35 years, but somebody generously pointed out to me on my birthday recently that now I could justifiably say that I've been doing Feng Shui for over 40 years. Which is a little uncomfortable. However, how did I get into it? It was very, very simple. And it's like the way so many people get into something new. So I was happily married. We moved to a new home. And everything, frankly, went tits up. And really, really badly. Almost as soon as we moved in. And it just created absolute mayhem. We were trying for a baby. We lost baby after baby after baby. It was so traumatic. I mean, everything that went wrong could go wrong. Yeah. And the money just drained away like somebody had turned on a great big tap and it was flowing out of that house like nothing on earth. And I just thought there's got to be something more that I'm doing here. You don't go literally in the space of a month from one house to another house and your whole life goes wrong,
like flip over and over and over again.
It was like just being dragged down this horrible drain. It was doing terrible things to our emotional health. We didn't want to be there. We didn't want to be together. And yet this was my dream home. It was the home I'd walked past over and over again. I'd manifested us into this space without thinking about the reasons that the people were moving out. They were getting divorced. They'd had terrible problems. Their kids were sick, And that was the first time I actually stopped and thought, it's something to do with a house. This isn't us. This isn't me and him. It wasn't the previous people there. It was something about the house, because what was happening was that our lives was mirroring the lives of the people who'd lived there before. And as it turned out, the people who'd lived there before them. So that was my first introduction to Feng Shui. And this being the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, the challenge here was that I really only had access to Western Feng Shui, which is the one that uses the front door.
Yep.
So I did what everybody does. I decided that I could do it myself, because it's really simple, isn't it? And to a degree, it helped. Things certainly improved. We were able to have a baby. She wasn't very well, but we had a baby. But our marriage had really hit the buffers. It was just too awful for words. So ultimately, we went our separate ways. But what went with me, aside from the baby and some toys.
Yeah, lots of toys, probably.
Important to take those. Was my Feng Shui book. And so it stayed with me then. And the interesting thing was that whenever I used Feng Shui, things got commensurately better. When I cleared clutter, things got better. But when I allowed it to build up, things got worse. And I could see the correlation between Feng Shui and clutter. And this became more and more clear. And then gradually I started helping friends and family with their Feng Shui. It got to about 10 years ago. I relocated. I moved into an apartment, and I realized that Western Feng Shui does not work in an apartment. And that was scary stuff, because it meant I had to go right back to basics. I had to learn the traditional methods, the compass methods. I had to accept that when you're coming into an apartment and we invite energy into our homes, this is why the front door method was so prevalent back in the 80s and 90s, because they would say that the energy comes in through your front door. Well, if you're in an apartment, the energy's got to come in through a door, turn a couple of corners, maybe get in an elevator, run along a corridor, through some fire doors. How the heck is that energy going to find its way into your home? Whereas actually, it's coming in through the balcony. It's coming in through those big windows. So that's where the energy's coming. Well, then how do you work that? And you work it with your compass directions. And no kidding, Heather, when I first installed compass Feng Shui in my apartment, it was like the lid came off the Jack in the Box. It was just like whoosh, everything started to change around me. And it was like, oh my God, oh my actual God, I have been
like,
living.
Whoa, hang on 1 second.
Yeah.
Let's just hold this down.
Muted this energy for 30 years. I've been dealing with half-cocked, substandard, second-rate Feng Shui, when all of this was right here for me, and I could access it here and now. And it just changed things in all sorts of ways. I mean, the best bit initially was the check for 38 grand. Ooh. So Canadian, we are talking nearly $80,000, came into my house 3 days after I had put my remedies in. That was a good thing. That worked really well for me, and it convinced me that I was doing the right thing.
Would say the same thing, that's a pretty good 3 days after.
Yeah,
that return on your.
So yeah, I mean, to cut what is now a very, very long story short, I totally retrained in Flying Stars Feng Shui, realized just how accurate it can be. I mean, Flying Stars can predict what is going on in your home. It can tell me if you've got dental problems. It can tell me if there's likely to be infidelity, or whether you're going to have problems conceiving. And yes, FYI, when I went back and checked that house I lived in all those years ago, problems conceiving. Oh yeah, we lived that. And I love the fact that I can identify what's going on in a house from the Feng Shui, and then give my clients the tools to boost the good stuff, squish the bad stuff, and get on and having a life which is blessed with so much more good, I guess you'd call it luck, fortune, coincidence. Oh, it just happened that way.
We know that coincidences aren't a thing. Like, it's a, this is because you've purposely put the intention, the energy through your home, which allows you, because again, like you were saying earlier, like clutter and Feng Shui, your clutter in your home directly affects you and your family and surrounding people around you, because it affects your energy, whether you want to believe it or not. Like, hey, you can be the most skeptic person in the world, but if there's a cluttered area, and I've done this with a few people, like a cluttered area, okay, well, where in your home is it? Oh, it's in, a part where your relationships is, like in Feng Shui. And it's like, oh, you wonder why your relationships aren't going well. Like, I know with mine, unfortunately mine, it goes right out the front door.
Okay. So, there are fixes for that. But you are absolutely right. Yeah. And the thing about clutter and Feng Shui, and you've absolutely put the nail on the head there, because if you have got clutter in an area of every part of your home relates to a different part of your life. So if you've got clutter in your relationship area, you're going to struggle with your relationship area. But from my perspective, this is why I always do a walk around of somebody's house on video before I do their feng shui. If your home isn't ready, if your home is cluttered and you go putting feng shui remedies in, even if they are absolutely the right remedies for the right space, feng shui magnifies everything that's around it.
Ooh, so you're magnifying that clutter.
You are magnifying clutter, you're magnifying mess, you're magnifying a whole lot more crap into your life, not to put too fine a point on it. Whereas if no, we do not want that. If you take a step back, you deal with the clutter, and there's more to clutter than the pile of newspapers or the stack of empty takeout containers or the outgrown clothes or anything like that. Because clutter for me, and this is where interiors therapy takes on an aspect in this, is also some of the things that you paid a lot of money for. You know, you were given their gifts, but those can also be clutter if they are not adding to your life in a really beneficial and uplifting way. And we can talk a little bit more about that if you like. But yeah, so this is why feng shui for me gets into every aspect of every life. And I've got to the stage now where I can look around a home even before somebody said anything to me and think, okay, yeah, so you've got some problems here with your relationship, or your health is struggling. What else have we got here? Right, I see that your kids are acting up.
Is it so weird for you to go to somebody's house, like whether it's, you know, a family, friend or whatever, and just be like, not like try not analyze it? Because like knowing what I know, I'd be like, so about that job or about that career, how's that going? Because we might want to move this around. Like it would be one of those things, like you want to fix it when you know, but then the people would look at you going, don't touch my stuff.
Yeah, you're so right. And I mean, there are people that I know who, if I go to their homes, I actually have to consciously switch it off because, you know, not to put too fine a point on it, it can get a little bit judgmental. You know, especially if I'm tired or I'm a bit cranky, I might look around and think, okay, let's just brush over this, shall we? And of course, you've also, and you'll be in exactly the same situation with me, I'm absolutely sure, that some families, well, your family is often your worst critic, isn't it?
Of course, yes.
It does not matter that I am a best-selling, award-winning author and I know my stuff inside out. To some members of my family, what I do is totally woo, and they don't see anything logical about it at all. They are going to just go on with their lives because why would they want anything different? And the fact that they might be living in a home where there's one illness or silly injury or hiccup after another.
Yep.
And I know exactly what's going on in that home, but they do not want to feel that I understand and can fix it.
Yeah. Well, and I find that a lot of people who, you know, very logical, very like, what do you mean if I move, you know, like I'm in my son's room right now and he has a big TV and I know TV's in a room, and, you know, whatever, etc. I know that that's not good, but you know what? Try and tell that to a 17-year-old that, you know, or almost 18-year-old that he can't have a TV in his room or gaming or whatever. This is his domain. So I'm like, okay, can we at least just make sure we keep it clean? Can we make sure that whatever? So do you find yourself like when you're talking to these people, like, you know, they're very logical or very like, this is woo woo, like, don't talk to me about it, that you would rather invite them to your house versus going to their house type thing?
Yeah, good question. As I say, I switch it off in that environment, or we meet up at a restaurant because they prefer it that way. They don't. I think when you realize that somebody can actually read what's going on in your life from what's happening in your home, that can maybe be a little bit uncomfortable because there are things that we don't always want to share, especially within a family. It's quite interesting. For years, my brother, they had some family stuff going on, which was really difficult for them to deal with. But he's a proud man, and he did not want people to know just how tough things were, until a couple of years ago when things got really, really challenging, and he asked me to just go and help with one of the kids, just to sort things out for one of the kids. And I went willingly, because, well, why wouldn't you?
Yep.
And when I got there and I just realized the magnitude of what was happening for people I really care about and really love, it was a case of, forget paying me, forget anything else.
Yeah.
I'm going to help you sort this thing out. And the difference for them was, it wasn't instant, but within a month we'd seen major improvement in children's behavior, in attitudes. Things were progressing in the right direction. But you talk about having the TV in your son's room. An example of how parents can inadvertently cause really quite significant mental health challenges for their children. Mirror wardrobes in the bedroom of anybody, but especially in the room that is occupied by a teenage girl. Because in Feng Shui we understand that mirrors almost separate your body from your soul. And when you sleep, there are all sorts of ramifications. They're said to invite ghosts and spirits in. Well, whether you believe that or whether you just think, hang on a second, since those mirrors came in, my daughter is moody, she struggles, she's looking at her body in a different way, she's challenged, her mental health is struggling. And this is what had happened in this home that I was working in, and I ended up sleeping in this room, which was just really awful. And because I was there for the best part of a month, I covered that wardrobe so that I was not experiencing that discombobulation that a mirror wardrobe will cause.
So is that so? Okay, so I actually have a daughter who just she does have a vanity, has the lights and however, and it is a mirror, and it is in her room, and she's a teenage girl. So, so you recommend, so listeners, if you also have a daughter or even a son or yourself that have a mirror, you're saying you put a blanket or just some kind of covering over it at night, when she was when you were sleeping or whatever, or is it all the time you kind of put that cover on?
Okay, well, let's get real. We all need a mirror, don't we? Especially when you get to my age. But no, so these were the long mirror wardrobes, so literally a wall of mirrors, which is one thing. Gotcha. However, we always recommend that you don't have a mirror reflecting the bed. Gotcha. So if your daughter's dressing table with her mirror, and if she's sitting in the bed, she can actually see herself reflected in that mirror, then yes, I would be covering it at night while she sleeps. Okay. But of course she's going to sit there. She's going to do her skincare. She's going to do her makeup. I have a mirror in my room, but it is on a wall where it doesn't reflect the bed at all.
Now, is it okay to reflect, if it reflects the entrance doorway, or that's also, I've heard that's also one that you kind of want to, or a window or whatever, because really, in my daughter's room, it's no matter where we kind of put it, I was like, no, we can't do that. No, we can't have the mirror on mirror. We can't. I don't know.
Absolutely right. I wouldn't have a mirror on mirror that's static. Yes. Yes, you want to check the back of your hair, of course you do, but have a handheld to do that. Ideally, you won't have a mirror reflecting your front door, because the energy is going to just go, it comes in through the front door and it bounces right back off the mirror, goes straight on out again. So your ideal for positioning of mirrors is at right angles to a door or a window, wherever possible. And if you're really, really stuck with that, then try putting them at an angle so that they don't, for example, reflect a bed.
Okay.
Also, the other thing to say is, if you are challenged by your weight, don't have a mirror reflecting your dining table. Now, lots of people don't have dining tables anymore. Dining rooms, they become playrooms or offices or whatever. But for those people who do have a dining table and they do have a mirror which reflects the food on it, now, in a way, that's saying, yeah, great, an abundance of food. Yes, we're wealthy, we've prosperity and abundance flowing through our home. Fabulous. But if you're putting on a few extra pounds, or that middle-aged spread is spreading rather more than you would like it to, then that mirror reflecting the place where you eat is adding to your challenges.
Oh, I never even thought about it that way. Like, I don't have, first of all, A, I don't have a dining room. B, I barely have any mirrors because the problem here that I have is our mirrors, like we've got the folding doors, like so they open up and they're just two doors that whatever, but those are mirrored. So I've got one in the hallway that reflects the whole thing, which is great when you're walking down the hallway and you're like, oh, okay, I can see that I'm a little disheveled, whatever. But and then our front closet also has a mirror as well. So like it's reflecting everything. Now it doesn't point to any front door or whatever, but if I'm sitting on the couch, I can, and this is how my kids and I can't scare each other because of the mirrors. We can see from one room to whatever. We can see that, I was like, I could see your shadow. And they're like, oh, right, the mirrors. But if there's a spot like mine, like I can't take those down.
Nope.
What is something that, because mirrors are a big thing, we have them mostly like, everywhere in the home type thing, whatever. What is something that we can do to help to, instead of if it's doing the like negative energy of it, can we put it so that it's more positive depending on where it is?
So you've actually just described a really useful way of feeling stable and more secure in your home, because you've got a reflective surface that is bouncing the light so that you see the shadow. You're aware in your peripheral vision if somebody's coming towards you, even if you've got your back to the door that they'll come through. Powerful stuff, that. And there are many ways that that's quite important. For example, you could use a mirror if you sit in an office, or you're like I can see you now that you've got your back to a door. If you had a mirror there on that desk with you, you would notice if that door opened, which means that your soul, your psyche will feel able to relax while you're doing what you're doing. Whereas actually, if you're sitting there with your back to a door, you can feel quite jumpy and quite insecure. And it's interesting that in a lot of office spaces, the most junior members of staff are basically sitting against a wall.
Yep.
Seeing nothing, feeling nothing, and they feel like they're constantly under observation. So that's one way you can use a mirror to really, really great effect. Now, if you have mirrors in places where it's really not supportive to your feng shui to have them, you can get stick-on decals. So even if you're in a rental, for example, it's like a film which makes the mirror cloudy, so it's not able to reflect. That is an inexpensive way of adapting a situation so that it can work for you. You don't have to resort to me getting old sheets and covering up those god-awful mirror wardrobes in my niece's bedroom, because I could feel my soul taking off into misery every night when I finally crawled into bed. The upshot of that story, actually, are you ready to hear the final
Always
outcome?
ready to hear. Yes.
So my brother decided that what they wanted to do most of all was to move. So they were going to move from the northwest and down to the southwest, which is, in Canadian terms, it's about 4 hours. But it's not quite a different time zone, but it is it's a different lifestyle. It's gone from it's grim up north to the sunlit lands of Devon. And he'd had a real estate agent come in and value the property. And this guy had looked around, this is before I got there, and said, oh, you're going to be lucky to get 500,000 for this at a push. So anyway, we did the work. we did the clutter, lot of clutter.
Yep.
We did the Feng Shui. And that was all we did, just clutter and Feng Shui. I was there when the real estate agent came back to take the photos, and he literally did not recognize the place. He thought he'd come to the wrong house.
Oh, that's awesome.
He instantly increased the value of that property by £75,000. So $150,000. Yeah. It sold on the first day it was marketed at over 600,000.
Oh, wow.
And that was the difference that it made. And the great thing was that their wholesale and purchase just went through very, very smoothly because they kept the Feng Shui in place and they allowed it just to happen. So they were able to keep their buyers all the way through. There wasn't any hiccup. It just all smoothed through. And they are now living their best lives in Devon. And the difference in that family, it's just virtually impossible to quantify. You look at them 2 years ago to the people they are now, half the size, because the weight gain through misery has just dropped off. Yep. A daughter who, instead of refusing school, is joyfully going to college and learning.
That's amazing.
And the other kids willingly coming to visit. It's mind-boggling, and I absolutely love it. And yes, it's my family. And yes, you know, I put my heart and soul into making that work for them. But that's what I do with all my clients. And so this is, you know, it's one story that I can say, yeah, here it is. You know, this happened, this happened, this happened. We did that with the Feng Shui, whoosh.
That is amazing. And I know for me, my kids and I, we are constantly rearranging our rooms or whatever. Like, I remember when I was with my ex and we would be in an apartment, whatever, be like, whatever. He'd come home and he'd see like furniture upside down, this or whatever, because I was moving it around. And he's like, do you need my help or do I just come back later? I said, just come back later. Because again, it was one of those, no, I just need to figure this out. Because for me to switch around my room, again, I know now. At the time, I had no clue. I just thought I was some crazy lady that just couldn't handle one thing. But knowing that where you sit and as you sit in a certain spot and what you can see and what you can't see, like we were talking about the desk. My desk right now, as we're recording, obviously I'm in my son's room because I have construction that's happening, you know, below me in the basement. That would have been right above my, you know, my desk was right above that. So I did not want that in the recording. But my desk is, my back's against the solid wall. Mm-hmm. I have my stuff behind me or whatever, but where I am sitting, I can see the front window, I can see the front door, I can see my kitchen, I can see that mirror that I was telling you about that's on the front, and I can see things, you know, around the corner type thing. So for me, I can't move that desk. Like
Yes, and you wouldn't want to.
Yeah.
Because your desk is absolutely in what we call the command position.
Yes.
You are in control of all you survey.
Yep.
And I say this to people, you know, think into, even with your home office, don't think in terms of sitting there facing the wall, even though you've had all of that expensive furniture put in. Yeah. No, turn it around. Sit with your, facing out to the room. Ideally, you can see the door. You can check out what's going on. You will feel so much more in control. You're not going to be in the situation where something happens at work that you had no inkling was coming your way. Things come out of the blue. Work lands on your desk at 5:30 on a Friday evening and it's got to be done by 7 p.m.
Yep.
You know, that's not going to be happening because you will be in control of your workspace. And I always say, think more in terms of, those gorgeous offices in Suits where, the guy was facing straight out and you could see what was going on. Think Harvey. Don't think about
I love that show, by the way.
Yeah. Don't think about being the person crouched in the corner with no idea of what's going on.
As we're mentioning this, like, look at the office space, like corporate places where they have you in this little teeny tiny cubicle, you're facing absolutely nothing, and you wonder why people are so miserable.
Yeah.
Like, I could not, like, even where I am right now, like, it's a good thing that, I've got a window right here that I can see out, so I at least have something. But the thing is I can't face a wall. Like, I don't know how people do that, like face a blank wall where you have nothing behind you, that you can't see anything, whatever. And it's just like, I can't do that because for whatever reason, again, I realized that obviously it's a Feng Shui thing, but at the time I was like, no, I can't do that. Like, this feels weird. So anytime I was in an office and I was like in that little teeny tiny cubicle, I was like, ew, like this is gross. I can't do this. Like, and then so working from home and everything like that has been fantastic because, again, where my desk normally is, obviously not right now as it's recording, but it's very much in the, I can just look up and just see panoramic of everything that's happening, whether it's outside, whether it's inside, whether it's my kids, whatever. And it makes it so much, like, it's such a different feeling than if I was against
powerful. Yeah, it's powerful, and it's very, very good for you, just as facing a wall is extraordinarily bad for you.
It's just boring too. Like, you're literally facing a wall.
It's boring. You don't ever see the bigger picture when you're facing a wall. So, you lose perspective, and you become quite insular, quite focused inwards, and really no way of knowing what's going on around you. So it's interesting stuff. And Feng Shui, will help in every single way. I mean, I've worked and we've reorganized some offices so that everybody has a feeling that they are valued.
That's huge.
So many places you don't feel valued, and once you're in that zone, the profitability of a company will increase.
Which you would think, for that alone, that a company, a corporate, like any of those buildings, whatever, would want to actually make it, because it's like, listen, first of all, you're going to have happier people that are working for you, which means that you're going to have people that actually want to work, which means that they're probably going to bring in more profit. Like, why wouldn't they do that? Like, but again,
well, some of them do. You think about HSBC or the Mandarin Oriental, these big companies, especially the Hong Kong based, the Chinese based companies, they will routinely use Feng Shui, not necessarily to increase staff happiness.
Yes, but increase the productivity, I'm sure.
Increase the baseline. Yeah. I understand that some Amazon places, especially Amazon head office, have been designed using Feng Shui.
Ooh.
There are many extraordinarily powerful people who quietly use Feng Shui, not because their relationships suck or they haven't got enough money to pay the rent at the end of the month, but because they know that using Feng Shui will make them even more successful. So, you can Google which celebrities use it.
Oh yeah, well, and that's it. Like, it's
easily done. But you can also, I mean, there are certain celebrities, and I will not name, but you see her quite often in Hello magazine. She's showing off her elegant home, blah blah blah, and I'm looking there and thinking, yep, your sex life is shit. The money isn't coming in the way you want it to, and you feel really, really lonely. And sure enough, the next week, the latest boyfriend is gone. There's this, there's that. Another one comes in. 3 weeks later, that one's over. You can spot things. Houses have different energy as well. I mean, this is something that we touched on earlier with the repeat of the bad things happening in a house. You can get a house which is like the lucky charm house. It's good for money. It's good for people. Everything goes right in that place. It's where the lottery winners live. It's where everything is great with the family. The health is good. And even if something does go wrong, and something will go wrong in a family at one time or another, but there's the money and the impetus and the love to pull it through.
So I'm going to ask, what does that home look like? Because I'm sure the listeners are like, wait. You said what? The luck, the lottery, all that stuff. What does that look like? If
it could look like a tiny studio apartment. It could look like the mansion on the hill. It could look like almost anything. When a house has been around for a while, it will start to show its true colors. So that very, very fortunate house is going to be the one where the maintenance is done, where the lawns are mowed, where things look good. But that looking good doesn't necessarily mean that it's lucky on both counts with the money and the people, because somebody who's got money to throw at a property can make it look absolutely incredible. And this is the second house type, it's good for money, but it's bad for people.
Mm.
So yes, it's kind of like fur coat, no knickers, really, because the
Okay, I just got a
money's
visual of
there.
that.
The money's there for everything, but the family relationships, the health, the way the kids respond, it's going to be really, really challenging. And this is where you get the high net worth divorces, but there's always the money to throw at the most expensive lawyers. It's where the kids will, go off the rails. Problem, one after another. So that's the second house type. Then you've got the third house type, which is good for people, but it's bad for money. So your family will be happy and healthy, but the end of the month always comes a long, long way after the end of the money. And it doesn't matter if you are in a job which pays you millions, because if you are in a house that drains money the way mine used to all those years ago, it doesn't matter about your annual bonus and it being enough to buy yourself a Learjet. Your house is going to throw something into the mix, which means that all of that extra money will disappear almost to penny.
So so bring it down to the practical. Like somebody's literally listening to this podcast right now and they're like, ooh, how do I know if my money is draining out of my house? Like what area are they going to look at in their home, or what specific things? Yes, we talked about the clutter, but is there things like I've heard about, depending on your drains, depending on your garbages, depending on all those different things, what is the thing to look at? Because again, the listeners are listening right now going like, I promise you, they're turning their heads looking around and going like, okay, what is it that I have to look out for or change that I can change right now so that my money, because I'm, the listeners going, I'm realizing that I just got, paycheck, but then I also just found out I have this big, huge debt, or my car just broke down or whatever. So that money went literally right back out the door. What is something that they can do today to look at or to change? That is something like maybe it's the physical, the garbages, like I said, like something tangible that they can walk away with.
So it's more fundamental even than where the drains run or where the garbage is stored, because this energy is built into the house the moment that the roof goes on. And that energy, they will see in a track record going back as long as the people have lived there. So them, the people before them, the people before them, they will be able to trace the change in their fortunes from the point that they moved into that house. Now, there are a couple of other things to consider. Number one is that typically the universe throws in something called a lock every now and again. So a lock can be about your money, or it can be about the people side of things. And what that will do is it's going to throw a spanner in the works for either a year or for 20 years. And a lot of houses, yeah, it is a lot. So a lot of houses that were built in the 80s went into a 20-year money lock on the 4th of February 2024. And you might well find that some people who are listening to this can look at their diary and realize that on the 6th of February 2024, the kitchen flooded, they got this ginormous bill, whatever. Everything has started to go wrong. So if your bad luck has gone on since you moved into that house, it's a long-term thing. If the bad luck came and went in a year, that's a lock. So those are the two differentials to pop in there. How would you identify? Well, the first thing is your knowledge of the place. So people will probably have a shrewd idea. I know when I moved into the apartment before this one, I moved in and very quickly I realized it's what we called a reverse apartment. So it's bad for people and money. That wasn't a comfortable place to live.
No, it definitely would not be, yes.
I mean, we balanced it with the Feng Shui. That's where the 38,000 derived. But nevertheless, it was not as comfortable as it could have been. People are also drawn to the same kinds of property. So if you're already living in a house that's bad for people, you will be drawn when you're looking for a new place to another one that's bad for people, because that feels really, really comfortable to you. That's your energy response. So you asked me what they can do right now.
Yep.
Okay. This is kind of, you need to know before you do something. And this is where not relying on generic feng shui or the things that the nice lady said on the radio about maybe putting, if it's bad, if your money's struggling, put some water in the back or the front. Well, which is it?
Yep.
Water is about money. Water is about flow. Well, hang on a second. I live in an apartment and I cannot very well put a rain barrel on my neighbour's, on the corridor outside my neighbour's front door, because they're not going to appreciate that. So what I would honestly say is, don't make generic mistakes, because they can make things a whole lot worse. I would say talk to somebody who knows what they're doing. Now, as I said, I do a 30-minute walk around of a home. I can say to you, somebody on that call, look, this is what is going to help you right now. And then if you choose to have your feng shui done afterwards, I will be able to give you advice so specific, so absolutely unique to you, your situation and your home, that nobody else will get that same advice. That is the difference between relying on a book or something on a podcast and getting somebody who is working with you for your home, real life, real home, real you. But the outline answer to that is, if things are challenging with money, you need to put water outside, either at the front or the back, but that again depends. And there are some areas where we don't want to be putting water at the moment. We don't want to be putting water in the south, for example. So how can you do it if your south is directly outside the back? Even if you've got the space to put some water there, can we move it across to the southeast or the southwest, for example? If you are having problems with people with sickness in the home, the remedy, the external remedy we use for that is something called mountain. Now, mountain is not importing Everest and sticking it in your front door. It does, however, need to be made of earth. So it might be, you can do it with a stack of bricks. I've had a lovely, lovely lady who's been working with me for a couple of years. She just moved to a new place in Texas. And she has stacked bricks up to 4-foot level outside her home. Now, nobody would know that those bricks are there. They're totally hidden from the street.
Okay.
Because, for me, feng shui, you don't walk into a place and think, oh, the feng shui's been done. It should be visible. Nobody who does not know me would walk into this house and think, oh, it's feng shuied. All they'll do is they'll walk in and think, it's really nice here.
And that's it. Like, you come into a house that has been, rearranged or decluttered, all that stuff. And it's a calming feeling. It's not, you're not uptight. Like, I've come into houses where it's like, like you just feel it as soon as you walk in. And that's huge. That's the energy of the home.
Goosebumps and nails scraping down a board in some places, isn't it? So yeah, we work in traditional feng shui with remedies which are all elemental. It's wood, plants, earth, stones, fire, red colours, orange colours, hot pink colours, burgundies, cranberries, metal. That is quite simply metal weight, and water. So in some situations, you might be asked to put water in a particular place, especially if you're somebody who's looking for new love and you happen to have some very, very useful energy called peach blossom in your home at that time. That will invite in the energy of new love. Problem is, of course, peach blossom it just does not discriminate. So you activate this, and the person who is, checking you out and flirting with you is in fact the bus driver or the guy on the train, or,
it could be any and all.
any and all. But at the same time, you might just connect, glance eyes across a crowded room and connect with that person who you are meant to be with. The peach blossom just opens up that flow, for example. But again, if you go putting peach blossom in a place where peach blossom should not be, you can do such immense harm that not only do you not get the person of your dreams, but you manage to cause yourself pneumonia and lose your job.
Oh no!
You know,
yeah, we don't want that.
We do not want that. You know, I've done walkarounds on houses, and the people have said to me, "Oh yes, well we read online that you should put water in the north to support your career." And I'll say, okay. And how is the health? Oh, well, yes, my son's got constant lung problems. My husband's lost his job, and the dog's got pneumonia. Well, yes, because
remove that water.
you've put water in an area that in all likelihood needs something completely different. And all you've done is drown that energy and create these terrible problems for yourself. So, yeah. Feng Shui, incredibly powerful.
Oh, it is. Like
it can move mountains.
Yeah.
But don't guess.
That's it. So again, listeners, she was talking about the 30-minute call and stuff like that. I will link that in the show notes. It is a free consultation with her, and it's right on her website. But yes, I will make sure that that's in the show notes, because I think everyone should be doing some form of feng shui and whatever. And like you said, don't do just the general, because again, with everything that's online, with everything that's out there, again, I started that Western side of things, and I've moved to the Eastern side, and knowing that, okay, no direction, because again, even just the way that, where your bed's situated, where this is, where that, like there's so many things to think about. Just hire the expert.
Yeah, exactly.
We've already thought about that, especially Suzanne, who's thought about it for over 40 years, as we've realized.
I'm just gonna slip in a tiny correction there. It's not a free 30 minutes.
Oh, sorry.
It costs £9 UK, that's which right. we worked out is about $18 Canadian. Yes. And you get my undivided attention for 30 minutes for the price of coffee and a cake.
Yes, apologies. Yeah, I don't know why I said free. Anyways, but yeah, like literally just for that 30 minutes, like you said, a coffee and cake, or a Tim Hortons and a, donut or whatever if you're Canadian. But it is so important to even just see, because like we said at the beginning, is the clutter that's in your house, because that might be the biggest thing that all of a sudden you're just like, like get rid of that first, and let's see what happens after that, because just doing that could change things in such a dramatic way. Like I have done that obviously in my business with people, and they're like, oh my God. And then all of a sudden their life changes.
And it can be literally as simple as that. You can have clutter in a place which is blocking the flow of your dream job, your dream partner, your health, your plans to travel the world, all of these things, travel, new opportunities, you're learning. If you've got kids and they're struggling at school, go and check out your Northeast, because probably you've got something there that is actively working against them just buckling down and getting the results that they need. There are so many aspects to Feng Shui, and it's incredibly powerful. And I love working in this field. It's just like, I see the people around me. I get messages to say, you will never guess what's happened. I've got a client who won a gold award at the New York Film Festival, and is, now awesome. Doing all of this incredible stuff. And, she doesn't need to trumpet about her Feng Shui.
Yep.
But we know that of the 6 houses that she's worked on, life has just got better and better. And on the 2 occasions when she moved without Feng Shui, at the behest of a partner at the time, she moved into homes which weren't supportive of her, and it caused major problems. So, she's totally on board with it. She does not move anywhere now without me checking the place out for her. And
that's awesome. That is fantastic. So I just want to, I figure we're coming to about an end. I try and keep the podcast about an hour-ish, but I'd like to ask you, what are some things with the mind, body, soul, and home that the listeners can take away when it comes to Feng Shui, their home, their environment? Because you know what? Obviously, the first thing that people, as much as they're in the home, not everyone can sell the home right away and go, okay, I need a better home. But what can they do for those 4 areas, for their home, for the feng shui?
Yeah. And just before we get into that, for the record, I am never going to tell you to move your front door or knock down a wall or anything like that. It's absolutely those real homes for real people. So that's the first thing to say. Okay, so the mind, have gratitude. Live gratitude, express gratitude in whatever way you can, because even if things are feeling really, really tough for you right now, you're breathing. You can look outside, you can see, you can go to the kitchen and make yourself a cup of tea or coffee. Other beverages are available, but you can do that. So be grateful for what you have, and then you'll find that there'll be lots more reasons to be grateful. And you can even manifest stuff and be grateful for it in advance, which I think is a very powerful thing to do. So the next thing with the body is actually get up and move. Feng Shui is all about removing stagnation from the home.
Yep.
Clutter, well, the etymology of the word clutter comes from clot, like a blood clot. And blood clots happen when we are not moving, and there are those blocks and stagnations in the body if we don't actually get off our backsides and do something. So get back into the flow of energy inside you as well as outside you, and never stay sitting still for too long. Don't do what I do, which is sit and work on my book for 10 hours at a time and then think, oh my God, it's dark.
I just physically cannot do that. I actually have to, like, every 25 to 45 minutes, depending on what my Pomodoro sessions are going, I have to get up and move because,
it's such an important thing to do. Okay, the soul. Understand that the subconscious has a direct link to the soul, and it can be triggered in ways which are unhelpful by some memories and possessions that are in the home. And this is where we get beyond clutter into what is that picture saying to you? What is that ornament, that piece of decor saying to you? What, why did you put that thing on the wall that says a lovely lady and a grumpy old man live here? And then, suddenly your other half got really, really grumpy. Well,
a correlation maybe?
Yeah, perhaps you're just encouraging that scenario. Yep. So look around you, look for the memories and the possessions that hurt, that have connotations, perhaps something you were given as a wedding gift and you've now been divorced 10 years and that gift is still there. Let those things go. And finally, the home. Live in a space which nurtures, supports, and uplifts, because Feng Shui will enhance your good fortune, and done properly, it's incredibly powerful. But a little bit like dentistry, doing it yourself seldom has good results. So get expert advice and follow it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Suzanne. Those were fantastic tips and stuff. And again, I know that the energy of your home absolutely affects you, because a lot of us who do work from home, it's where you are most of the time. So why would you not want to enhance the environment around you so that you can enhance the environment inside you as well? So,
and it's not difficult and it's not expensive to implement. It's just getting in flow.
That is fantastic. So again, listeners, I will have that £9 session with Suzanne in the show notes and stuff like that. And thank you again, Suzanne, for joining me. And I look forward to seeing how everything, works in the Feng Shui thing, because I definitely am going to take you up on one of those calls.
Heather, you're abundantly welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.